the Rangers have a lot of quality starting pitchers on the IL. But who's going to be the first one out of the rotation once starters start to come off? We're going to talk about all that and more on this episode of Locked On Rangers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Rangers, your daily Texas Rangers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are locked onto the World Series champion Texas Rangers. I'm Bryce Paddock, a cripplingly addicted Texas Rangers fan covering this team for 11 seasons, including all 6 as the founder and host of this podcast. Thank y'all so much for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. If you're not already, you can follow me on Twitter at Bryce Paddock. You can follow the show at Locked On Rangers. Hit subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform and on YouTube, where the best way you can help grow the show is to comment nearly any single thing below. Now, before we get into today's topics of who is going to be first into the pen, and also, is it time to start getting concerned about Wyatt Langford's home run drought? This episode is brought to you by Monopoly Go. I admit, I have a competitive side, and it is a big fan of Monopoly Go, the mobile hit twist on the classic Monopoly. So join your friends and download Monopoly Go, now free on the App Store or Google Play. Now, the idea for the first topic of today's show was brought to me by a follower on Twitter. I am so sorry. I'm forgetting who exactly it was I had this conversation with. I believe it was last night, because I've done this show a couple of times, but looking a little bit more at, who specifically is going to be first to move to the pen, who would be most effective there, especially after that outing from John Gray out of the bullpen this weekend. Andy Swain, that's who it was. Thank you to Andy Swain on Twitter, who was asking about this last night and prompted me to think, okay, yeah, this would be a good topic for the show. Because the Rangers have a lot of guys on the IL. They have a lot of guys coming off at different rates of the IL. I mean, I added Michael Lorenzen to the rotation just last week. They are hopefully getting Cody Bradford back off the IL sometime next week is when he's eligible. I haven't heard anything about a rehab start, but probably won't hear anything about that until some point in this series against the Mariners, when we start getting to hear a little bit of chat about that. Max Scherzer is starting his first rehab assignment on Wednesday. Still TBD if that's in Round Rock or in Frisco. And then eventually, hopefully, you get the return of Mahle and deGrom. And at this point, you got 5 starters you feel pretty decent about. Plus, well, Jack Leiter is there lurking and could make a spot start if the Rangers need him to. Hopefully it'll be prettier than his Major League debut. But again, I think Leiter pitched a little bit better than those numbers would indicate. But right now you got 5 guys in your rotation, and there are some question marks regarding some of them. But for the most part, the Rangers starters have been fairly solid. I mean, everybody outside of Andrew Heaney has an ERA under 4. I mean, Dunning, I think, has been one of the worst starters of the group, but he's gone 6 innings pretty much every start out and has kept the Rangers in games, by no means pitching them out of it. And John Gray, who had a rough first couple of starts, has looked fantastic his last few outings, especially that one out of the bullpen. And even Heaney, I think, is a little bit better than his numbers would indicate, having a 6.35 ERA in 4 starts and 17 innings. He looked solid against the Braves. Not the most spectacular outing. Looked rough early, but got through 5, gave up 3 runs against one of the better lineups we've seen in a long time. And so there's not a whole lot of rush to shove anybody right into the bullpen thinking, oh God, this guy is terrible. The Rangers actually don't have any good starting pitching, and the Rangers need those injured reinforcements soon, like super soon. But, they're coming. They are coming off the IL. Cody Bradford, a guy who most people didn't think would make the rotation, has been arguably, despite making just 3 starts, he's been the Rangers' best starter this season. And that 15-day IL stint is not ideal. Hopefully he comes back on after, right when he's ready to be activated. I think that is the initial thought with that lower back strain. But Scherzer's coming much sooner than anybody anticipated. Lorenzen has been solid, if walking a tightrope his first couple of starts. And Eovaldi, great first couple of starts, a little bit shakier in the last few, but still solid atop that rotation. So let's look at the Rangers' options. Now, when healthy, again, the Rangers, if everybody on their 40-man roster was completely healthy, the Rangers would have 9 different guys that you'd feel comfortable starting a regular season game. And in that order, in my order for if everyone's fully healthy, fully, themselves, the rotation would look like this. DeGrom, Scherzer, Nathan Eovaldi, Tyler Mahle, Cody Bradford, Michael Lorenzen, John Gray, Andrew Heaney, Dane Dunning. That's 9 guys. That's solid. That's kind of akin to where the Rangers were last year. Now, before all of those trades, they had 7 guys that I felt pretty confident in being able to start coming into camp, maybe 8, with Cole Reagans being the 8th one that did not get the chance to start. But that's a topic for a different day. But at right now, at present, you got to look at who's the worst starter. That's probably going to be the first thing the Rangers consider. Who is the guy who's put up the least impressive outings, does the least for the rotation, or does the least to help out the bullpen and give you not the best chance to win? At this point, you got to say Andrew Heaney, but outside of a couple of really rough starts, which again will happen with Andrew Heaney, it's been okay for him. And I think he plays up pretty well out of the pen, but you got to also look at Dane Dunning, who, again, not to trash on Dane Dunning, Rangers pitcher of the year last year, fantastic starting, fine, pretty good starting pitcher. I don't want to get too ahead of myself with Dane, but he's been fine this year. A 3.91 ERA in 23 innings, going about 6 innings per start. But the walks have really concerned me with Dunning, as well as the home runs. He's not giving up a whole lot of hits, under 6 hits per 9, but 2 home runs per 9 and 5.1 walks per 9. That hasn't bit him just yet, but eventually it's gonna. Turns a lot of solo home runs into 2-run or 3-run or grand slams because you were not able to get guys out. And when you don't have the nastiest, velocity, it's usually those guys are kind of, weak ground ball, soft contact, great command guys. That's what Cody Bradford is. That's what I love about Bradford is he's giving up half a home run per 9, which I don't think that's going to stick for the entirety of the season. But under 1 walk per 9, that I think can stick because Bradford's command is elite. But he's also not pitching you super deep into games, which is something that I really value in a starter. I think that gets overlooked a whole lot, especially in today's game, where you've got guys like Jared Jones going out there on like a 50 pitch count and going 3 innings, or Paul Skeens, which I understand why the Pirates are doing that with both of those guys specifically, of working them up to getting ready to pitch every 5th day when they're used to pitching every 7 days, and being cautious with starters that throw 100. It makes sense, especially given where they are in their contention window. But for the Rangers, guys who pitch multiple innings, not having to use as much of this bullpen, which has been pretty good so far this year, especially Kirby Yates, who I talked a lot about in yesterday's show, of him just being absolutely insanely good, which is such found money for the Rangers. But going deep into games, that's one of the things that I enjoy about Nathan Eovaldi, what I value about Eovaldi. It's one of the reasons why I like Dunning sticking in the starting rotation a little bit better than Heaney, because Dunning is usually going to go 6 innings. Sometimes he'll give you 7. Sometimes he'll have a blow-up start and he'll give you 4 2/3 or whatever. But that happens more often, more frequently for Heaney because he's not as economical with his pitch count, and also why I lean a little bit more towards John Gray over Heaney as well. With Lorenzen, he's still building up, but he went 5 shutout innings in his first start, 6 innings with just the 3-run homer in the first inning in his second start against the Braves, which going 6 innings, 3 earned runs against the Braves, a quality start, that is a difficult thing to do. And Lorenzen says that he is feeling like he has got his best stuff. And that is something that bodes very, very well for the Rangers, him having his best stuff and looking like the best version of himself, because he was definitely an afterthought. I mean, the Rangers signed him a week before the opening day, and he's already here in the rotation, making a couple starts, and he's probably going to stick there at this point. We'll see. It's still very early. I mean, we've got 5 starts from Nathan Eovaldi. We're not even 5 times through the rotation. We've got 3 starts from Bradford, 4 from Gray, 4 from Dunning, 4 from Heaney, just 2 from Lorenzen. So we still don't really know exactly what this rotation is looking like. But coming up, we're going to go through what at this point would be my ideal look for this pitching staff, which guys would be nastiest in the pen, right after this word from our sponsors. This episode is brought to you by Game Time. Game Time is the fastest, the easiest, by far the best way to get tickets for all of the Major League Baseball games you're looking to go to, all of the other different sporting events you're trying to go to. If you're trying to go to a Mavs or Stars playoff game, if you're trying to go see some comedy, some music concerts, if you're trying to go see some theater as well, they've got everything on the Game Time app. That's so easy to use. You can see great deals up to the last minute on this site. You can save even more with exclusive in-app deals and select seats ahead of the game or event. So you can save even more with when you choose a section and let Game Time choose the seats. You can get a panoramic view from your seat. Also, the lowest price guarantee. The lowest price. That's what everyone's looking for with these apps, right? Well, the Game Time's got the lowest price guarantee. So if you find a game app tickets somewhere else, Game Time will credit you 110% the difference. Your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. This episode is also brought to you by Policygenius. Policygenius is the country's leading online insurance marketplace and save you time and money so you can provide your family with a financial safety net starting today. Policygenius helps you compare your options from the top companies, and their team of licensed experts is on hand to help talk you through it. You can talk to a team of award-winning agents who will walk you through the process step by step. You can easily compare quotes from America's top insurers in just a few clicks to find your lowest price. Your work-life insurance policy may not have enough protection for your family's needs. Even worse, it may not come with you if you leave your job. But Policygenius gives you unbiased advice from a licensed expert support team. They've got no incentive to recommend one insurer over another, so you can trust their guidance. Thousands of 5-star reviews on Google and Trustpilot from customers who found the best fit for their needs. So check life insurance off your to-do list in no time with Policygenius. Head to policygenius.com/LockedOnMLB or click the link in the description to get your free life insurance quotes and see how much you can save. That's policygenius.com/LockedOnMLB. Now let's look at these Rangers starting pitchers as to who would be the nastiest in the bullpen. Well, I think the obvious question, the obvious answer to that would be Jacob deGrom, because Jacob deGrom is nastiest everywhere. But ideally, you're putting him in the starting rotation. He's fully healthy. He's going 5, 6, 7 innings, however many he's got in him, and that is the value of him. Same with Scherzer, and same with Eovaldi. Those guys, if they're healthy, if they are their full selves, they are going to be guaranteed starters in a playoff rotation in any context. Unless Jack Leiter and Kumar Rocker both just, become incredible and like unhittable and unbelievable and like this hit their ceiling in like right now, which again is totally unreasonable and unfeasible and not happening. But basically those three guys guaranteed locked spots in the rotation, no matter what the context, if they are healthy. But as for the guys in the rotation right now, who would be the nastiest in the pen, the biggest difference in their stuff as a starter and their stuff as a reliever, I think the two obvious options are John Gray and Andrew Heaney. Now, Heaney, again, like I've said, not to disparage him, he's World Series hero, legend forever, love him to death. But going about 4-5 innings, usually only around like 80 pitches is his ideal mark, and facing a lineup a third time through is not always the best for Andrew Heaney. So I think that his stuff would play up very, very well in a relief option. The Rangers don't have the most, nasty lefties that would be very tough on lefties, and Heaney is very tough on lefties. With that fastball, with that slider, that combination in the pen would be a very, very helpful weapon for the Rangers, and I think that the velocity ticking up a little bit in the pen, which I think it would. He's already got great spin rate on that fastball, but if he's got that and it's ticking up a little bit from where it is, I think that would be just such a devastating combination. And then John Gray is the obvious answer. I think of these starters, outside of those big three names that I mentioned, and I'll include Mahle in those guys as well, I think Gray's got the highest ceiling as a starter. I mean, we've seen these month-long stretches where John Gray just looks like absolutely unbeatable, like otherworldly. And then he'll have some stretches where he is just in a rough way. But when he's been in the pen in the World Series and in that one outing that we saw against the Braves, he's been absolutely electric. The slider is one of the best sliders in baseball, like bar none. when he's just airing that thing out and the fastball velocity is ticking up a few ticks, which I think it would in the pen, he could be the Rangers' eighth inning guy. He could take over for Robertson in that role. I don't think anybody's supplanting Yates at this point with what he's done, but having another arm like that who can also go multiple innings because he does have a starter's buildup, that is a huge potential weapon for the Rangers in the pen. But at this point, I think that Dunning would probably be the first one to move into the bullpen. That would probably, I think, come when Cody Bradford gets off the IL. Then whenever Scherzer gets off the IL, I think that at this point, I'm leaning towards moving Heaney into the pen over Gray. Those would be the two. I think Lorenzen of this grouping would probably be one of the last ones because he was signed. And I think given a little bit of some guarantees or wink of you're probably going to be a starter as long as you're effective. But again, we're still not even a month into the season, so it's still very early. But my ideal playoff pitching staff looks like this. Starting rotation, Jacob deGrom, Max Scherzer, Nathan Eovaldi, and I think Tyler Mahle. But at that point, this is up in the air, and right now, I would lean towards Cody Bradford. Again, it's a tiny sample size, but it's some combination of those three for the number 4 starter of Mahle, Lorenzen, and Cody Bradford as well. In the bullpen, your closer is going to be Kirby Yates until he does something horrendous. He's been unbelievably good this year, so I don't see any reason to move him out of that pen. Then your other leverage guys are going to be David Robertson, Josh Spores, and I'd say John Gray, as well as Jacob Latz and Jose Leclerc. That's 6 guys, including closer. That's 6 guys in high leverage that you feel pretty darn good about. Latz and Leclerc at this point are kind of up in the air, but I think by season's end, Leclerc will be back to close to his postseason form, and I think once it becomes a postseason, he will find another gear and find that velo and be just absolutely nasty and devastating. Maybe not, but at this point, that's where I'm leaning. And then for your other medium leverage guys, you've got whichever one of those 2 of the grouping of 3 that I listed for the number 4 starter, either in Cody Bradford or Michael Lorenzen or Tyler Mahle. I don't know what to expect from Mahle at this point. Usually guys command in year 1 after Tommy John surgery. It takes another year to get fully back to that. I don't think I've heard any updates about Mahle other than he's throwing something at some rate, which is less than I've heard about Jacob deGrom, who is throwing from, I believe, 60 feet now. He's at least throwing from 90 feet. He's throwing something somewhere in some way. So feeling better about deGrom returning in August than I am at this point of Mahle returning in July. But again, Mahle at this point feels like a super bonus. Whatever you get from him this year, it's all almost entirely based on the value of what he will bring next year. But that's how I feel about this pitching staff, what I'd ideally like it to look like in the postseason. I mean, that would look like an incredible staff. That would be one of the best pitching staffs in baseball. I mean, from the starting rotation, if your number 4 starter is Tyler Mahle, who is a pretty good starter, that's your number 4 guy. Usually rotations don't run that deep in the playoffs. There's a reason why guys go with 4-man rotations or sometimes even 3-man rotations. It's because getting that many quality starting pitchers is very difficult. And if you get to the postseason, if it's a big if at this point still, things are looking good, especially because things are creating for the Astros. And the Rangers have a good chance to give themselves a little distance in the AL West between who I think is the second best team at this point in the Seattle Mariners. If you've got Nathan Eovaldi as your number 3 starter heading into the playoffs, that is just so great for this team. Not to mention how good the bullpen I think could be if all these guys are healthy. Again, big qualifiers, and also if the lineup is hitting like we would expect it to be, which it hasn't done at this point this season, but I'm not particularly worried that all of these all-star caliber hitters are going to figure it out. I'm pretty sure they will. But, I mean, given the concerns about this rotation heading into the year, what they've done so far this year, even though it hasn't been spectacular, I think it's really turned around some heads. I mean, there were no questions about the Astros starting rotation and the depth there. And it's been pretty horrible for them so far. The Mariners starting rotation was not great for the first couple weeks, but the last 10 days it's been, about as good as we'd expect, which is to say fantastic. But again, that was the biggest concern about this team, and so far, it hasn't been the biggest concern to start the season, which is another reason why I'm feeling so good about the state of this team early on in this season while they are weathering these challenges. Hopefully the offense starts to heat up a little bit, but we'll talk a little bit more about someone in particular that I'm starting to get mildly concerned about, and that is Wyatt Langford. But we're going to talk about why concerns you should be or should not be concerned about Wyatt Langford's home run drought right after this word from our sponsors. This episode is brought to you by Monopoly Go. I've been told that I'm a competitive person. Okay, well, yeah, I have a competitive side. We all do. My competitive side is a big fan of Monopoly Go. I'm sure you've heard of it, because it's been downloaded over 150 million times. It's a great twist on Monopoly, where you can play not one, but hundreds of Monopoly boards in crazy locations, building up amazing cities that bring you in big money. But the best part is messing with my friends. I can charge them rent for my iconic properties, just like in classic Monopoly, but now I also have heists that can heist their vaults and bring their riches to myself. And the leaderboards show me the biggest Monopoly tycoon is. That's not just my competitive side that loves it. You can team up with your friends and people all around the world in timed tournaments to earn huge rewards. So get the game and join your friends. Download Monopoly Go now free on the App Store or Google Play. Now, the Rangers had two young rookies that were, atop of the pile, just at the top of the cream of the crop of rookies coming into this season. Two co-favorites for AL Rookie of the Year in Wyatt Langford and Evan Carter. Now, if you were to tell me that I'd be sitting here on April 23rd and one of these rookies had 3 home runs and one of them had 0, I would not have guessed. You could give me 3 guesses, and I would not have said that Evan Carter was the one with 3 and Wyatt Langford was the one with 0. Langford led this team in the spring with 6 home runs. He was impacting the baseball. He was having great plate appearances. And so far to start his career, he's got a couple of doubles. He's got a triple. But he does not yet have a home run in 21 games and 93 plate appearances. But is it time to be concerned about the rookie? My first instinct is to say no. Major League Baseball is very hard. This kid is 22 years old, and as of this point, has 293 professional plate appearances. That's not even half a season of professional baseball. That's including all of his 200 plate appearances from last year. Yeah, 200 career minor league plate appearances. He breezed through the system, and he should be here. He had an amazing spring training, and he looked every bit the hyped prospect that he was. But so far, it's been a little bit tough for him. But he's not the only one on a big homer drought. I mean, look at these other players that have not hit home runs yet this year. Julio Rodriguez, Alex Bregman, Jose Abreu, Nick Castellanos, Gleyber Torres, Spencer Torkelson, and also another very hyped prospect in Colt Keith. Now, I think that there is something to the baseballs being unjuiced at this point. I mean, home runs have been down for the majority of this season. This is a tweet from Ballpark's Pal. They said home runs are being hit at a just over 2.0 per game and down 15% from last year. A main reason appears to be that the ball isn't flying as far. Carry distance is on level with the notorious dead ball of April 2022. The expected home runs are down about 2% at this point this year. 1% versus actual versus expected home runs this year. So the baseballs might be a little bit dead, and we never know about that because Major League Baseball owns the manufacturing company that makes these baseballs and will juice them or dejuice them at their whims and then pretend like they aren't doing so. So that's kind of annoying that we don't really actually get that information. If they were juicing it or dejuicing it, I wish they'd just say and be honest about it, but they will never do that because that's not who they are. So let's look at some of the numbers behind Wyatt Langford's approach and his swing and other things like that. His deserved home runs. This is, according to Baseball Prospectus, based on his batted ball data, how hard he's hitting baseballs, how far they are traveling, at the angles he's hitting them at, and dimensions of an average Major League park. He's at 2.8 deserved home runs, according to Baseball Prospectus. Now, why is that actual number 0? Well, let's look at his approach. He has always been praised as a guy with a great elite approach does not swing at balls, does not chase pitches, knows what's a strike and what isn't. And so far this season, he is known quite a bit better than MLB umpires. There was obviously the infamous plate appearance with Angel Hernandez, where he had strike 1, 2, 3, all significantly out of the zone, including, I believe it was strike 3 that was the furthest pitched ever outside the zone called a strike, according to umpire auditor, which just, of course, I don't know why at this point Langford is getting so many calls outside the strike zone. This is a tweet from, where'd we go? From where are we? Codify. On April 19th, it said that Wyatt Langford had 15 out-of-zone pitches called strikes against him this year. That leads all MLB hitters. Now, I went through and looked at his plate appearances from the series against the Braves. Game 1 and Game 2, no balls outside the strike zone called for strikes, but Game 3, a couple of pitches, and they were pretty far out of the zone, and they were first pitches of the at-bat. First pitch, already a pitch 2-3 inches off the zone. It happened twice in that Sunday game, where he started down 0-1 versus 1-0, which is a huge difference in hitter leverage. And so now that is up to 17. Yeah, 17 out-of-zone pitches, by my count, that have been called strikes against Wyatt Langford. And a lot of them have been those first pitches, or pitches that should have been ball 4, or what have you. They've been in leverage counts as well. And it forces him to expand the zone. But so far, he hasn't really done that so much. He's still walking at a around league average rate. He's striking out a little bit less than league average. His chase rate and his whiff rate are both in the 74th percentile in baseball, so he still knows what's a strike and what's not. But what is a strike and what's not has been different for each major league umpire, which has been a little bit of a learning experience for him. But one thing that I am a little concerned about with Wyatt Langford is that he is not hitting fastballs well. That's something that's a little concerning for me. Because usually if you're struggling, it'll be, seeing major league quality breaking stuff for the first time. That can be difficult. Or major league off-speed pitches. Usually those are difficult. But he has a -3 run value against four-seamers at this point. He's hitting 130 and no extra base hits on that. A strikeout rate of 36%. A whiff rate of 27% on fastballs. His expected batting average is not much better. Its expected batting average is 138 versus actual batting average of 130. That's really not that much better, and his expected slugging is at 220. So it's not that much better. And I believe the reason for this is that he is not being as aggressive. He's doing the reverse Corey Seager. Now, Corey Seager is such an amazing hitter because he's not being amazing so far this year, but last year and in the postseason, when Corey Seager is at his best, it's his selective aggression that sets him apart. And that's something that the Rangers did very, very well last year as a team, was swinging at quality strikes, taking balls, and taking strikes that they couldn't do anything with. So when you get a meatball, just punish it. And that's not what Wyatt Langford was doing early on in his career. He was being very, very selective, taking a lot of pitches in the zone, and his zone contact rate was also pretty low. His zone swing percentage was at 57.7%. So of balls that were in the strike zone, he was only swinging at 57.7%. That is much lower than everybody else, every other regular on this team, I should say. And his zone contact rate was not great at 80.9%. Marcus Semien is one of the better ones in baseball at 92.3%. That's ideal. Around 85 to 90% is what you're looking for. Smith is around 90%. Leo Taveras is around 90%. Corey Seager is at 90%. So that's more what you're looking for. He's not chasing at all. Wyatt Langford isn't. Not at a much better rate than almost anybody else on the team outside of, well, of course, Evan Carter. His out-of-zone swing percentage is at 23%, but Langford's is at 28.6%. So he's doing a good job of not swinging at these bad pitches. But one thing I noticed that it was encouraging to me in this series against the Braves, I went through and looked at all the pitches that he swung at or didn't swing at in this series, and it was swinging at a much higher rate at pitches in the zone and quality strikes, pitches that were, about belt high or middle over the plate. He's swinging at more of those, which is an improvement and a switch that he made from early on this year. So I think eventually he's going to figure things out. He's just too talented not to. And again, he's 22 years old. And also the baseball is deadened a little bit, it seems like. And he's 22 years old. He's going to figure things out. Also, the fact that he is like significantly faster than I think almost any of us anticipated, like 98th percentile sprint speed fast, that is something that is very fun and encouraging. So at this point, I'm not worried really at all at Wyatt Langford. If we get to mid-May, if the ball starts to be a little bit more juiced and we're at mid-May or really the end of May and he still doesn't have a home run and he's still not impacting the baseball, then I might be a little concerned. But again, he's 22 years old. He's barely played 5 seconds of minor league baseball, and I think he's going to figure it out because he is too talented not to. Now, just real quickly, before this Mariners series, the Rangers made a couple of roster moves on Monday without announcing anything. It was just on their transaction page. They activated Jonathan Hernandez from the IL, optioned Sam Huff and Owen White to AAA, which probably means that Jonah Heim is going to be off the bereavement list on Tuesday's game, because I don't see the Rangers carrying just one catcher, even if for one game, because right now Kisner is the only catcher on the roster. I'm excited to have Hernandez back. He looked okay in his minor league outings. He's not walking the entire world, which is an improvement. And if you're mad about Owen White being sent down over Austin Pruitt, I get it. But at this point, honestly, Owen White is a worse pitcher than Austin Pruitt, which is not really a compliment to Pruitt. It's more of a comment on where White is. White has some things to work out still from last year. Been really disappointed that he hasn't been able to figure it out this year, and the stuff hasn't been anywhere where we would hope. But again, at this point, I don't think that Pruitt's going to be on this roster much longer once Josh Sborz gets activated off the IL. This is a huge series for the Rangers against the Mariners to, distance themselves a little bit from a Mariners team that is very much struggling to hit. Like I said, Julio Rodriguez still does not have a home run yet this year. Logan Gilbert versus Dane Dunning on Tuesday, Bryce Miller versus John Gray on Wednesday, and then Thursday, Luis Castillo versus Andrew Heaney. I'm really excited for this series. I think this is going to be another big test. I don't know why the Rangers had an awards thing, whatever kind of banquet on Monday, their first off day after 17 straight days. That felt like a real chance to just go home, rest, get right, because you're back at it when you don't get 2 off days in a row in the season outside of the All-Star break. But still, a big series coming up. I'm really excited to hopefully see Wyatt Langford hit his first home run. But again, even if it doesn't happen, I am not concerned at this point, and I don't particularly think you should be either. That's going to do it for today's show. Thank y'all so much for listening and subscribing, and until next time, don't forget to enjoy World Series champion Texas Rangers baseball.